since that deal that fell apart in the spring and summer of 2024, and now, if you think about what's actually changed, I think one of the most important things that has changed is Israel in the region has suddenly appeared to be winning, not bogged down, not stuck, not reeling, not even not losing. I think many people thought Israel was losing. They look like they're winning. In the spring and summer of 2024, when that deal was being negotiated, Sinwar was alive and in charge. Nasrallah was alive and in charge. Iran and the regime in Iran was emboldened. Assad was still in power. I mean, just think of all that has changed between those two deals. Sinwar dead and Hamas severely, severely degraded. Nasrallah dead, Hezbollah devastated in this incredibly dazzling pager and walkie-talkie attack. Israel exposing and seriously weakening Iran's air defenses. Assad gone. Now the Houthis on defense. I mean, you just start to think about how the region has transformed. Really.
By the way, the Houthis just announced that they're ceasing fire.
Okay, so there you go. So the sense that Israel is on the move, and my view is this deal is incredibly imperfect, but so there is risk for Israel. There's no doubt there's risk for Israel in this deal, and you and I may disagree about the scale of the risk, but there is risk in this deal for Israel. But if Israel is ever going to take risk, taking risk when they are winning and they are projecting to the region that, as one friend of mine said, the Israel's new policy is F around and you'll find out.
Yeah,
F around with Israel and you'll find out. And everyone from Hezbollah to Hamas to Iran they're all finding like you mess around with Israel, and they've suddenly been learning over the last few months that Israel is engaged in these negotiations from a position of strength. And that I just think that the transformation of the region here, giving Israel leverage to do deals like this, is extraordinary. It doesn't look like Israel is on the run and doing deals out of desperation.
Yeah, and I think this is also incredibly important politically, because I look at these things always in terms of domestic politics. And I think that in the world that we live in, leaders unfortunately rarely make these moves unless they look at domestic politics in general. And we just need to face with that. And the truth is that Israel has had its victories that allow, even domestically speaking, to make the pitch that you can actually stop the war in Gaza, which will mean the Hamas people we're gonna see these pictures. We're gonna see Hamas people celebrating in the streets in these 42 days. We're gonna see Palestinian prisoners being released, blood on their hands, and we're gonna see 1 million people return back to the north. And Israel can do that because it has this image of winning in the region, of disintegrating the axis of resistance, but also because of another reason, and that is that Netanyahu has expanded his coalition. He's not dependent on the far right of Ben Gvir anymore. He has Gideon Sa'ar there. He has another member of Knesset from Yesh Atid. And,
from the opposition.
And suddenly, cynically, he can allow himself to have a deal now because his political life is not completely dependent on the Ben Gvir of the world. And Ben Gvir knows this. And because of that, the far right might stay in government because they know that Netanyahu can live without them. And this didn't exist before that. But after and before wrapping up, I want to say something about the people I'm thinking about right now. Of course, I'm thinking about those families that are so excited, waiting for their loved ones, and the immense pressure and tension that they are in right now, not knowing their fate until they see them. And until we see these people released, I can say over 20 alive, but we don't know anything until this happens. So this is an incredibly dramatic moment for the Israeli society. But my thoughts are with the families who have lost everything. And I'm not only talking, you mentioned the brave men and women of the IDF and the soldiers that have been sacrificing their lives in the Gaza Strip fighting Hamas. But I'm thinking about the families of the hostages that are not going to come back home, or those that are going to come back home but are dead. I'm thinking about those hostages that Israel was negotiating off back in May and July. and were murdered by Hamas or died during this war. And I'm thinking about this probably immense sense of, frustration, grief.
What could have been. Sense of
those families that are going to see a deal now that, to a large extent, Dan, is quite similar to what we have seen. So yes, there is the political dynamics, there is the regional dynamics, but at the end of the day, this is just so devastating. And after I said that, I'm saying something I said, and I'm going to say this again. Getting back the hostages is not about Israel being sentimental, paying these huge prices for Gilad Shalit at the time. That might have been a mistake. And many people do think it was a mistake. But in principle, the fact that Israel is willing to make these concessions in order to get our people back home, to get our hostages back home, the fact that this solidarity exists in Israeli society is not a point of weakness, but of strength. And it is strategically important for the survival of Israel that in such a difficult neighborhood, people will know that the state has their backs and that the society stands as one, and that Kol Yisrael Arevim Ze Lazeh. And without that solidarity, how do we promise people that if they go to the army, that if they sacrifice their lives, that if they just live in the south, on the border, or live in the north, that Israel will do everything? So this is so important. Israeli society is bleeding and is under immense political pressure and tension and distrust. So getting back home, everyone we can, is really important for our survival, factually, rationally. It's not about narratives. It's not about culture. It's about what we need to do to survive in this region. It's a point of strength. And because of that reason, I've been, at least in my op-eds, been very supportive. I'm content that the Prime Minister has made the right decision. And at the end of the day, if people accuse him or criticize him for making the wrong decisions, they need to give him credit when he makes the right decisions, even if it wasn't done in, the right timing or the right place when we wanted it. He's going to stand behind this. It's very important right now for this to go through. And all of us, everyone listening, we're going to have 42 days that are just going to be excruciating in terms of our sentiment and what we're going to see.
Yeah, and what we're going to learn about what these people have been going through.
Yep.